some of the kids were saying they didn't feel well, so that's why they went ahead and stepped out. She just, we've been dealing with being sick and thought we were all past it, and then some kids just sitting here started acting bad. So I'm by myself at the moment, but no worries. We're reaching a time of year where folks think a lot about. We're not quite there, but it's coming. The retailers, right, have you already thinking about it this Christmas time. And it's a pretty common time, and I think one of the reasons it's so popular is that this Jesus, who they give some respect to, I guess, is kept very small. He's in baby form, which is easy to contain and easy to, I suppose, ignore, easy to do those kind of things to. A perfect man who lived a perfect life and who shows up and starts demanding that you turn away from the world. Hold on, that's asking a bit too much. Tell me some more about the little baby form he started off as, and some heavenly fireworks or whatever they want to go with, and it's kind of unfortunate. I've been kind of surprised to find in my personal reading. I'm reading through Mark, and how many times that Jesus is actually kind of taken as being scary to the apostles, that they saw something that didn't just surprise them. They saw something that was so big, so amazing, so intimidating that it went past surprise. They were realizing that they were not in the presence of just a man. There were moments when it came clear, crystal clear, that this was not just a man they were dealing with. This was a perfect man, the Son of God. It's kind of, I don't want to be mean, but I'm kind of glad to read those things. Because if you think about them, if they weren't scared, that might mean that they saw behind the curtain and it was just some trickery or some sleight of hand. I don't know what you'd say. But the very people closest to him, it is astonishing. Just in the book of Mark, and there's the other books have it as well, but just to think about the book of Mark, he scared them. Like good humans, I'm sure there were times where something scared them the first time. Like, whoa, that lame man just stood up, that leg grew longer before my eyes, and the withered hand or whatever that turned into actual normal healthy flesh, or just whatever, thin unmuscled legs have muscle and are able to get up and walk away carrying a load with them. The first time they saw that, maybe they were scared by that. Of course, you see that 10 times, a good human starts not being as shocked with each time, even though each time it's incredible, amazing, a miracle. A human could get used even to miracles, is I guess what I'm proposing. They kind of got casual with him at times. And you read that when the disciples, he catches them several times, or at least once, it seems maybe twice, but where they're arguing amongst themselves about who is going to be the first or the greatest in the kingdom. Or they're trying to figure out a way to maybe have, I know you're the Messiah, but I want you to participate in my plans, and I want to be on the left or the right. Tell me which one, but you can participate in my plans as I try to do what I'm trying to, my strategy. And they kind of forgot for a moment who they were dealing with, who they're talking to. And then all of a sudden, he does something where the example of Paul, Paul's scales falling from his eyes, but their eyes, all of a sudden, they realize, who are they dealing with? They're dealing with the Son of God. And it's, I don't care probably how many times lightning would strike right next to you and that huge thunderclap might hit you and the sparks or whatever. You pay attention when you realize that it gets your attention. And just these are examples of times not that lightning happens, but that their attention is just focused. It becomes clear that they are dealing with the Messiah and not just some person. I wanted to read some verses. Mark 4:41. Well, I guess it's the preceding verses. I shouldn't just drop right in there. So 35, on the same day when evening had come, he said to them, "Let us cross over to the other side." And then when they left the multitude, they took him along in the boat as he was, and other little boats were also with him. And a great windstorm arose, and the waves beat into the boat, so that it was already filling. But he was in the stern, asleep on a pillow. And they woke him and said to him, "Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing?" And then he arose and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, "Peace, be still." And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. But he said to them, "Why are you so fearful? How is it that you have no faith?" And 41, and they feared exceedingly and said to one another, "Who can this be, that even the wind and the sea obey him?" And I would probably be with them. He scared them. Like, that was power. Another verse. We're just going to stay in Mark. So 5. I maybe won't read all of this one because it is longer, but this is where there's legion. And there's all these unclean spirits in this man, and they take out, or Jesus casts the spirits out of him and into swine, this herd of swine, this huge herd of swine. You get to 14 through 16. So those who fed, just before that, so Jesus casts the evil spirits into the swine like stampede into the lake and drown. But then 14, so those who fed the swine fled, and they told it in the city and in the country, and they went out to see what it was that had happened. And then they came to Jesus and saw the one who had been demon-possessed and had the legion sitting and clothed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. So they were afraid. They knew how big a deal it was. I mean, this is a guy this is not a short time trouble he'd had. I mean, people knew about this man, and they saw, and afraid. We go to Mark 5:33. This is the woman who has an issue of blood. She touches his garment, is healed. She knows how big a deal this is. And 33, but the woman I keep jumping. I'm sorry. So 31, I'll go to 30. Jesus, immediately knowing in himself that power had gone out of him, turned around in the crowd and said, "Who touched my clothes?" Because that's what healed her. But his disciples said to him, "You see the multitude thronging you, and you say, 'Who touched me?'" And he looked around to see her who had done this thing. But the woman, fearing and trembling, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell down before him and told him the whole truth. So she was kind of afraid. That was her whole point. Her whole point was to get there, touch his cloak, and be healed. The whole point. She does it, and the truth of it scared her. That he really did have that power to do that very thing. You go to Mark 6. We have Jesus walking on the water. That's not done. But Jesus is doing it. 49. And so when they saw him walking on the sea, they supposed it was a ghost and cried out, for they all saw him and were troubled. But immediately he talked with them and said to them, "Be of good cheer. It is I. Do not be afraid." So I mean that they were afraid. And then he went up into the boat to them, and the wind ceased, and they were greatly amazed in themselves beyond measure and marveled. And so I mean, he shocked them. They had been afraid. He was telling them, "Don't be afraid." Why? Because they were afraid. We go to Mark 9. This is the Transfiguration. So pretty amazing things happen. A mountain. We have Elijah and Moses talking to Jesus. I mean, it's an incredible event. We have, so this is Mark 9, 5 through 7. And then Peter answered and said to Jesus, "Rabbi, it is good for us to be here. And let us make 3 tabernacles, one for you, one for Moses, one for Elijah." because he did not know what to say, for they were greatly afraid. I mean, they were in the presence of power, mere humans. They understood that. It had come clear that he is different. He has power, such power, and they were afraid. This one was funny to me. This is Mark 10. I don't know where my page break is kind of odd on this one, but this is Mark 10:32. This one was funny because, we'll read it. Now they were on the road going up to Jerusalem, and Jesus was going before them, and they were amazed. And as they followed, they were afraid. And then he took the 12 aside again and began to tell them the things that would happen to him. We don't even know the things he was doing. It just, the only part it told us about is that they were afraid because of their amazement. I mean, he was doing things just as they walked along that were astonishing these people. It's a pattern, right? I mean, this is the Messiah. He's not just a normal guy. This is not some guy who's just wise. This is not a wise Jesus. This is a Son of God, Jesus. There's two groups of, well, I guess one thing to say before. I mean, I'm not trying to say that we necessarily should be scared. I do want to point out that Jesus never smites somebody with a miracle. Never. What does he do with these miracles? He's helping people. He's loving them. He's being a blessing to them. To look around in the world about us, oxygen in the air, water in the clouds, soil to grow things. These are all his provision. This is his power around us. I mean, this power is to our good. And so I'm not trying to propose or paint some purely scary picture of Jesus. He is certainly a blessing to us. But there are two groups of people. There are people who should be scared of Jesus and those then that shouldn't be scared of Jesus. So in the group of folks who shouldn't be scared of Jesus, Matthew 19, where Jesus is taking these children, he's saying children basically are of the kingdom of heaven. So children have no need to be scared of Jesus. And the other folks that don't need to be scared of Jesus is that he tells his disciples to not be afraid. In that text we read in Mark. So his disciples don't have to be afraid. There are people who should be afraid. In Hebrews 2, three and 4. Who being the brightness of his glory and the express image of his person and upholding all things by the word of his power. Wait, no, I'm in the wrong. Sorry, I'm off a book. Or chapter. Hebrews 2, 3, and 4. How shall we escape if we would neglect so great a salvation, which at first began to be spoken by the Lord and was confirmed to us by those who heard him, also bearing witness both with signs and wonders, with various miracles and gifts of the Holy Spirit according to his will. So in 3, the folks that should be scared are those who neglect their salvation. The other folks, we're going to go back to Mark. This is Mark 16:16. He who believes and is baptized will be saved, but he who does not believe will be condemned. So if you refuse to obey, you should probably be scared. And we've got Matthew 10:16. Matthew 10:16. Behold, I send you out as sheep in the midst of wolves. Therefore be wise as serpents. Wait, no, I'm off. I'm off. Again, I'm off. 20. So 20, I was reading 18. And do not fear those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul, but rather fear him who is able to destroy both the soul and the body in hell. So there is somebody to be afraid of. It's that one who can then destroy you and send you on to the devil's domain, of course, which is the Lord. And then Hebrews 10. I guess I should have put these two together. Hebrews 10. We're back to Hebrews. 31, 10:31. And that is, it is a fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living God. When the person you're dealing with, well, the being that you're dealing with has unbounded power, which is the Lord, it sure makes sense that it's a bit unsettling at times when you see it. Your brain is not used to unbounded power. If you're on his side, I guess if you're not careful, you can be scared by it. But oddly, it's his power that keeps you from having to even be scared to start with. If you're obedient, you don't have to fear God. And if you're with him, he tells you to not be afraid. It may be shocking, the amazing things he can do, but not afraid. Now, you do have to pick what you're going to be afraid about. You're either going to fear the Lord and be obedient, and then not have to worry about anything else, or you have to continue to worry about dying someday and fearing the times we live in. And as life gets hard, you maybe fear that. You get to pick what you're fearing. If you're going to fear the Lord, if you're going to fear everything around you. 1 John 2:28. 1 John 2:28, and now, little children, abide in him, that when he appears, we may have confidence and not be ashamed before him at his coming. So you can have confidence. It's not a fear matter with the Lord. I mean, you can be one of his disciples, you can be one of his children, and not be fearful at all, even as you come in and encounter the most powerful being ever. There was one last verse in Mark that I wanted to read. Mark was this book I was reading through and kind of it caught my eye. The times that his own people, his own disciples were scared by him. But Mark 16, verse 8. And so this is Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of James, and that they're coming to Jesus' tomb. So in verse 8. So they went out quickly and fled from the tomb, for they trembled and were amazed, and they said nothing to anyone, for they were afraid. Well, why were they afraid? So if you go look before, in 6, but he said to them, do not be alarmed. You seek Jesus of Nazareth, who was crucified. He is risen. He is not here. See the place where they laid him. So even his rising from the dead scared them. So this is a Jesus who, as he did miracles, he scared them. When he controlled the weather, he scared them. When he was walking on the water, he scared them. When he was killed, it scared them. They all scattered. But then we would see here where when he rises from the dead, it scared them. And each one of these is a show of a power from him. And we are dealing with the Messiah. We should not be surprised when you encounter power from the Messiah. And for us now, in my thinking, it kind of led me to, us, we each have two problems. We have the problem of sin, and we have a problem that we're all going to die. Those are two pretty big problems. Kind of scary big problems. But he has a scary amount of power. And it is the kind of scary amount of power that he can actually address both of those. It is not too big a thing for him. He is able. It is in his power to help us with both, to solve both. He has solved both, and he solves it then by the things that scared them. His love has come and lived and sacrificed himself. The price has been paid that solves both of those problems. It just matters now what you're going to do about it. And if you're going to join him in taking a hold of the solution to your sin and to the fact that you're going to die someday. Today, if you would like to participate with him in his I hate to keep using the word, but his scary amounts of power and his ability to save us. Today is the day. I mean, come forward, confess, repent, certainly believe, but be baptized and help you get started on that path. If you need just encouragement, that is also the time right now to do it. And there's no better time but today. Come forward as we stand and sing.